Welcome back to Fremmer English Podcast, the podcast where we help you learn natural, everyday English through long, relaxed conversations. And today we're diving into a topic that is both fascinating and incredibly helpful for English learners: what reading actually does to your brain.
Yes, and before we begin, we want to remind you to subscribe, like, comment, and share, because your support helps us continue creating these long, easy-to-understand English conversations that guide you step by step toward confident speaking.
So, when I think about reading, I always remember how calm and focused my mind feels whenever I spend even a few minutes with a book. And it's amazing how such a simple habit can change the way the brain works over time.
Feel the same way, because whenever I read, especially in the evening, I notice how my thoughts slow down gently, my stress decreases, and I become more relaxed, almost as if my brain is thanking me for giving it something peaceful and meaningful to do.
Reading is special because it activates several parts of the brain at the same time, the parts responsible for language, imagination, memory, and even emotional understanding, all working together as you follow the story or information on each page.
Yes, and what's interesting is that your brain creates mental pictures when you read, almost like a movie happening inside your mind. And this exercise strengthens your imagination, your focus, and your ability to think clearly.
When I was younger, I didn't realize how powerful reading was, but as I grew older, I noticed that the more I read, the better my vocabulary became, the easier it was to express myself, and the more confident I felt speaking with others.
That's true for me as well. And I've seen how reading regularly improves not only language skills but also concentration. Because when you read, you naturally learn how to stay focused for longer periods without feeling overwhelmed.
Another amazing thing is that reading helps your memory, since your brain has to remember characters, places, ideas, and details from earlier parts of the book. And this constant mental exercise keeps your brain active and healthy.
Yes, and studies show that people who read often have stronger mental connections, which means their brain stays sharp as they grow older. And that's one of the many reasons why reading is considered one of the healthiest activities for the mind.
I also love how reading slows down time in a way. When I open a book, the noise of the world becomes softer, and I feel like I enter another space where I can think more deeply and reflect more calmly.
That's exactly how I feel, and I think this peaceful feeling is one reason reading helps reduce stress. It gives your brain a break from constant screen activity and non-stop information.
Another benefit is that reading helps improve empathy. When you read about different characters and their experiences, your brain practices understanding other people's emotions, which makes you more patient and understanding in real life.
Yes, and that emotional connection is one of the most beautiful parts of reading. It gives you a deeper understanding of the world, of different cultures, and even of yourself, because stories often reflect parts of our own lives.
Let's also talk about how reading helps you learn English faster. Because when you read in English, your brain absorbs vocabulary naturally, without forcing it, and the more you read, the more familiar these words become.
I agree completely, and reading helps with grammar too. Because your brain starts to recognize patterns, you see how sentences are built, how verbs change, and how expressions are used, all without memorizing rules.
Even reading 4, 5, or 10 minutes a day can make a big difference, because small, consistent habits create strong results over time, especially when learning a language.
Yes, and reading doesn't always have to be something difficult. Even simple stories, short articles, or children's books can be incredibly helpful. Because what matters is consistency, not difficulty.
One of my favorite things about reading is how it improves attention span. In a world full of distractions, reading teaches your brain to focus on one thing at a time, which is a powerful skill for learning and for life.
Absolutely, and because reading requires concentration, it strengthens the brain in the same way muscles grow stronger with exercise, making it easier to concentrate on work, study, and conversations.
Do you remember the first book that made you realize reading could actually change you? I remember reading a book about personal growth, and I felt like my whole perspective on life expanded after finishing it.
Yes, I remember exactly. It was a novel about a young girl discovering her identity. And reading her journey made me reflect on my own experiences, which is something only reading can do so deeply.
Reading also sparks creativity. The stories, ideas, and images fill your mind with new possibilities, and this creativity can help in writing, speaking, problem solving, and even daily decision making.
I completely agree, and sometimes after reading a powerful story, I feel inspired to try something new, think differently, or imagine a new goal. And that sense of inspiration is one of the greatest gifts reading gives us.
Sometimes people say they don't have time to read, but even a few minutes during breakfast, a short break, or before bed can be enough to build a habit that strengthens the brain slowly but surely.
Yes, and reading is one of the easiest activities to start because all you need is something simple, a short story, an interesting article, or even a short chapter from a book.
Another interesting thing is how reading improves your imagination. When you visualize characters and scenes, your brain is actively creating images, which keeps your mind flexible and creative.
And imagination is not just for artists. It helps everyone with problem solving, planning, communication, and even emotional understanding, making reading a truly valuable mental exercise.
One thing I love is that reading helps with emotional balance. When life feels stressful, reading gives the brain a calm, peaceful activity that helps reduce anxiety and refresh your thoughts.
Yes. Reading is almost like a mental vacation. It allows you to step into a different world, disconnect from stress, and find comfort in stories, ideas, or knowledge.
I also appreciate how reading improves sleep. When I read a few pages before bed, my brain slowly relaxes, and I fall asleep more easily compared to nights when I look at screens.
Same here. And experts say that reading a physical book before sleeping signals the brain that it's time to rest, helping you unwind naturally.
For English learners, reading out loud is also powerful. Speaking the words helps with pronunciation, rhythm, and confidence, and it's a simple practice you can do anytime.
Yes, and even reading quietly strengthens listening skills in your mind, because your brain hears the structure of the language, even if you're not speaking.
Reading also helps your brain stay young. Studies show that people who read regularly keep their cognitive abilities stronger for longer.
That's such an encouraging thought because it means reading is not just fun or useful, but also healthy for your brain throughout your entire life.
When I finish a good book, I always feel a sense of satisfaction, like I've traveled to a new place or learned something valuable, even if the story was simple.
I know exactly what you mean. Sometimes, when I finish a powerful book, it stays in my mind for days, almost like the characters or the message are still speaking to me.
Teaches us patience, reflection, and the joy of taking things one page at a time.
Yes, reading brings us back to ourselves. It gives us space to breathe, think, and simply be present in the moment.
For English learners, the more you read, the more natural the language becomes, because reading teaches you words in real context, not just from vocabulary lists.
And context helps your brain remember words more easily, because you understand how the word is used, not just its meaning.
One of my favorite parts of reading is discovering new ideas. Books introduce us to new perspectives, cultures, and possibilities, enriching our understanding of the world.
Yes, and reading can even change your mindset. Sometimes one sentence from a book can inspire you or shift your thinking in a powerful way.
Before we continue, I just want to say how proud we are of all our listeners, because learning English through listening and reading is one of the smartest ways to grow.
Yes, and if you're here listening to this long conversation, it means you already have the discipline and the motivation needed to improve your English every single day.
And now is a great moment to remind everyone to subscribe, like, comment, and share, because your support helps us continue creating episodes like this.
Yes, and we'd love to hear from you. Comment below with the name of the last book you read, even if it was a short one.
All right, let's continue exploring what reading does to your brain, because there are still so many interesting effects we haven't discussed yet.
Yes, let's keep going. I think the next part of our conversation will help learners understand even more ways reading strengthens the brain and improves English learning.
Another wonderful thing about reading is that it strengthens your ability to concentrate for longer periods, because when you follow a story, your brain trains itself to stay focused without jumping from one idea to another.
Yes, and that's especially important in today's world, where we are constantly distracted by phones, messages, and notifications. So reading becomes a powerful way to bring your attention back to one simple, peaceful activity.
I also find that when I read regularly, I think more clearly, because reading forces you to slow down, process information, and understand ideas carefully, which naturally improves your thinking skills.
I agree completely. And sometimes, after reading a meaningful chapter, I feel mentally refreshed, almost the same way I feel after a good conversation or a long walk.
Another thing that reading does is help your brain make connections. When you read different books, different ideas start combining in your mind, and suddenly you understand things from a wider perspective.
Yes, and I love that feeling when a book teaches me something new, and I suddenly realize I see the world differently, even if the message was simple.
Reading also helps improve emotional language. You learn how to describe feelings, express thoughts, and explain experiences more clearly, because books introduce you to new emotional vocabulary.
That's true, and emotional vocabulary is very important for English learners, because it helps you communicate more deeply, more honestly, and more confidently.
I remember reading a novel where the main character felt lonely, and the author described the feeling so beautifully that it helped me understand loneliness in a new, more compassionate way.
Yes, books often help us understand emotions we haven't experienced ourselves, and that emotional understanding is a sign of a healthy, open, and growing brain.
Reading also improves patience, because stories unfold slowly, page by page, and your brain learns to enjoy the process instead of expecting quick results.
And patience is a skill that benefits every part of life, personal relationships, work, studying, and of course, learning a new language.
Sometimes when I read, I stop and think about a sentence for a moment, because reading invites reflection, and that reflection strengthens critical thinking.
Yes, and reflection helps you understand yourself better, what you believe, what you want, and how you see the world around you.
One of my favorite types of reading motivational books, because they fill my mind with positive thoughts and help me stay focused on improving myself.
I love those too. And it's amazing how one powerful line from a book can stay in your memory and guide you through difficult moments in life.
Reading also teaches your brain how to imagine possibilities. When you read about characters who overcome challenges, your mind learns to believe that you can overcome your own challenges too.
Yes, and that sense of hope, that feeling that things can get better, is one of the most powerful emotional benefits of reading.
Another interesting effect is that reading improves your brain's ability to organize information. Stories have beginnings, middles, and ends, and your brain learns to understand structure naturally.
And this skill helps in writing, speaking, studying, and even planning your daily life, because your brain becomes better at putting ideas in the right order.
Reading also develops your ability to focus on details. When you follow a story, you pay attention to names, objects, actions, and feelings, and this strengthens your observation skills.
Yes, and good observation skills help you understand English better, because you start noticing small differences in tone, vocabulary, and sentence structure.
Sometimes when I read, I find myself imagining the voices of the characters, and this makes the story feel alive in my mind, almost like listening to a movie without the screen.
I do the same thing, and it's amazing how the brain creates entire worlds with just a few words. Reading truly activates creativity in a powerful way.
For English learners, reading helps pronunciation too. Even if you don't say the words out loud, your brain still processes how they should sound, which helps when you speak.
Yes, and reading teaches rhythm as well. Because when you see how sentences are written, your mind learns the natural flow of English.
Another great benefit is that reading builds confidence. When you finish a chapter or understand a story, you feel proud of yourself, and that feeling motivates you to read more.
Yes, and confidence is essential for learning any language. The more confident you feel, the more you speak and the faster you improve.
Some people say reading is difficult, but it doesn't have to be. You can start with something very simple, like short paragraphs or easy stories, and your brain will grow over time.
Exactly, and there's no need to pressure yourself. Even 2 or 3 pages a day can make a huge difference in your progress.
Reading also helps reduce overthinking. When your mind is busy imagining a story, it has less time to repeat stressful thoughts.
Yes, it's like giving your mind a peaceful break, allowing your thoughts to settle and your emotions to relax.
When you read stories from different cultures, your brain develops cultural awareness, which helps you understand people from around the world and communicate more respectfully.
And cultural understanding is one of the most important parts of learning a language. Because language is not just words, it's people, emotions, habits, and experiences.
Reading also strengthens decision-making, because when you see how characters make choices, good or bad, your brain learns how to evaluate situations more thoughtfully.
Yes, and sometimes reading helps you make better choices in your own life, because stories show consequences in a powerful way.
I also notice that reading improves my ability to stay calm during difficult moments, because the habit of focusing quietly on a page teaches your brain a kind of emotional discipline.
That's true, and emotional discipline helps you react more calmly to stress, confusion, or challenges, even when learning English feels difficult.
And reading helps vocabulary grow naturally. You don't memorize lists. You simply see words again and again until your brain recognizes them automatically.
Exactly, and when vocabulary becomes natural, speaking becomes easier because your brain can find the right words more quickly.
I also love that reading teaches curiosity. Every book opens a door to something new, and that curiosity helps learners stay motivated and excited about learning.
Yes, curiosity is powerful. When you're curious, learning stops feeling like work and becomes enjoyable and meaningful.
As our conversation continues, I realize how many ways reading improves the brain: emotional, mental, linguistic, creative. It's truly an all-in-one exercise.
Yes, reading is like a gym for the brain, but a gentle and enjoyable one where you grow stronger without feeling pressured.
Before we continue, I want to remind everyone listening that reading even simple English material can create huge improvements over time.
Yes, and this is a great moment to ask you to subscribe, like, comment, and share, because your support helps us keep creating long, natural English conversations like this.
Now, let's continue exploring some of the deeper and more surprising things reading does to your brain, because there are still many benefits people don't know about.
Yes, and the next part of our conversation will help listeners understand how reading shapes not only the mind, but also personality, confidence, and emotional strength.
All right, let's keep going. I think our listeners will enjoy this next part as we go even deeper into the brain and the power of reading.
Yes, let's continue. I'm excited to share more, because reading truly transforms your brain in beautiful and powerful ways.
One of the surprising things reading does to your brain is that it strengthens something called emotional intelligence, because when you read about characters who feel joy, fear, sadness, or hope, your brain practices understanding those emotions in a deeper and more human way.
Yes, and emotional intelligence is so important in daily life, because when you understand emotions better, you communicate more kindly, solve problems more calmly, and build stronger relationships with the people around you.
Another powerful effect of reading is that it improves your imagination, not just for storytelling, but also for real-life problem solving, because when your brain learns to imagine different possibilities, you become more flexible and creative.
I agree, and I've noticed that after reading a good book, my mind feels more open, almost as if new doors have been unlocked, giving me fresh ideas and new ways of looking at everyday situations.
Reading also helps reduce mental stress, because when you get lost in a story, your brain temporarily forgets the worries of the day, allowing your mind to rest and heal quietly.
Yes, and even reading for just a few minutes can calm the nervous system, making you feel more balanced and relaxed, especially before bed or after a long, busy day.
Another fascinating benefit is that reading improves your ability to understand complex ideas, because books often present information slowly, step by step, helping your brain build strong mental connections.
Exactly, and this skill helps in many areas of life: studying, working, learning languages, and even making important decisions, because your mind becomes used to processing information clearly.
I've also heard that reading regularly increases empathy, because by stepping into a character's world, you learn to see life from different perspectives, which makes you kinder and more understanding.
Yes, stories help you imagine the feelings of people who live different lives, come from different cultures, or face different challenges. And this understanding makes your world bigger and your heart softer.
Reading can also improve self-awareness, because sometimes when you read about a character's journey, you unexpectedly recognize parts of yourself, and that recognition helps you understand who you are more clearly.
That's very true, and I think many people have experienced that special moment when a sentence or a paragraph feels like it is speaking directly to your heart, making you feel seen and understood.
I also love how reading encourages patience, because stories develop slowly, teaching your brain to wait, to enjoy the journey, and to appreciate details instead of rushing to the end.
And this patience naturally affects real life. When you read regularly, you become calmer, more thoughtful, and more able to handle stressful situations without reacting too quickly.
Another beautiful thing is that reading builds inner peace. When you sit quietly with a book, your breathing slows down, your mind settles, and you feel grounded and centered.
Yes, it feels almost like meditation because your brain focuses on one peaceful activity, allowing you to escape the noise and pressure of the outside world.
And when you read in English, your brain is not only relaxing, but also learning, because every new word, every sentence, and every expression becomes part of your growing language ability.
Exactly. And what I love about reading in English is that the learning feels natural and effortless. Your brain absorbs vocabulary just by seeing it used in context again and again.
Reading also improves your writing skills, because when you see good sentences, your brain remembers them, and over time, you start using similar patterns when you write or speak.
Yes, your brain learns style, tone, and clarity from books. And this makes your communication smoother and more confident, even without studying grammar rules.
Another thing reading does is train your imagination to visualize clearly. This ability helps not only in storytelling, but also in goals, dreams, and life planning, because you can imagine more vividly what you want to achieve.
Yes, and when you can visualize your goals clearly, you often feel more motivated to take action because your mind already sees the possibility and believes in it.
Reading can also improve memory, because every story requires you to remember details, characters, and events, and this mental exercise keeps your brain active and strong.
That's why reading is often recommended for people of all ages, children, adults, and even older people, because it keeps the mind sharp and flexible.
I've noticed that when I read regularly, I become better at explaining my thoughts, because reading exposes me to so many ways of expressing ideas clearly.
Yes, and this is incredibly important for English learners, because reading helps you speak more naturally by giving you real examples of how people express emotions, experiences, and opinions.
Another interesting effect is that reading makes you more reflective. It gives you space to think about your life, your values, your memories, and even your dreams for the future.
Yes, books often invite you to pause for a moment, breathe, and think deeply. And that reflection helps you understand yourself in ways that everyday life doesn't always allow.
Reading also teaches persistence, because finishing a book takes time, effort, and dedication, and this habit of finishing things can influence your goals and projects in real life.
Exactly, and when you complete a book, you feel proud. That sense of achievement strengthens your confidence and encourages you to take on bigger challenges.
For English learners, reading builds something very important: language intuition, the natural ability to feel what sounds correct, without needing to think too hard about grammar rules.
Yes, language intuition is what makes speaking smoother and more natural, and reading is one of the best ways to develop it, because you see how words work together in real sentences.
Another benefit is that reading teaches discipline. Making reading a habit requires consistency, and that consistency helps improve many other areas of life.
I agree, and once reading becomes part of your routine, you start feeling more organized and more in control of your time.
One of the best feelings is reading a book that inspires you, a story or idea that stays with you, giving you motivation and pushing you to grow.
Yes, inspirational books can help your brain think more positively, and they can remind you that change and growth are always possible.
Another great thing is that reading helps develop your inner voice, the part of your mind that helps you make decisions and guides you when life feels confusing.
Yes, the more you read, the clearer and kinder that inner voice becomes, because it learns from the wisdom and experiences of different characters and authors.
I also think reading helps reduce loneliness, because books give you companions, characters, ideas, and stories that stay with you, especially during quiet or difficult times.
Yes, books can feel like friends, offering comfort, understanding, and a place to escape when you need peace or inspiration.
Another powerful effect is that reading improves communication skills, because it exposes you to different ways people speak, think, and interact.
And good communication is important in every part of life: relationships, work, learning, and even self-expression. So, reading becomes a tool for personal growth.
For English learners, reading also helps develop listening skills indirectly, because when you read, your brain imagines the sound of the language, even if you're silent.
Yes, your inner voice becomes stronger and clearer, helping you recognize sounds, stress patterns, and rhythm when listening to real conversations.
Reading also helps your brain slow down, which is important in a fast world. It teaches you how to enjoy quiet moments without feeling bored or restless.
Yes, reading reconnects you with your own mind, giving you the space to breathe, think, and feel deeply.
As we talk about all these benefits, I feel even more inspired to read, because every book truly has the power to shape your mind gently but powerfully.
I feel the same way, and I hope our listeners also feel encouraged to read more, even if they start with simple, easy-to-understand books.
Before we move on to the final part of our conversation, I want to remind everyone that reading just a few minutes every day can completely transform your brain over time.
Yes, and don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share, because your support helps us continue creating long, natural English learning conversations just like this one.
One of the most incredible things reading does to your brain is that it helps you build a stronger sense of identity, because as you read different stories and ideas, your mind starts discovering what feels meaningful to you and what kind of person you want to become.
Yes, and books often give us the words we didn't know we needed, words that help us understand our thoughts, our feelings, and even the dreams we keep quietly in our hearts.
Reading also teaches resilience, because many stories show characters facing challenges, learning from mistakes, and growing stronger. And when your brain absorbs these journeys, it learns that you too can handle difficult moments.
I completely agree, and I think that's one reason reading is so comforting. It reminds us that struggles are normal, growth is possible, and we are not alone in our experiences.
Another beautiful effect is that reading strengthens your ability to visualize the future, because when your mind practices imagining scenes and stories, it becomes easier to imagine your own goals and plans clearly.
Yes, and when you can picture your future with clarity, you feel more confident taking small steps toward it, because your mind already feels connected to the possibility.
Reading also develops patience with yourself, because when you spend time reading slowly, you learn to accept that understanding, learning, and personal growth all happen little by little.
Exactly. And this gentle mindset makes learning English easier, because you stop expecting perfection and start enjoying the process of learning one word, one sentence, one page at a time.
Another powerful benefit is that reading teaches silence, not an empty silence, but a peaceful one that helps you hear your own thoughts clearly and connect more deeply with your inner world.
Yes, and this peaceful silence is something many people forget to experience. But reading brings it back, giving your brain a chance to rest from the loudness of daily life.
I also noticed that reading makes conversations more meaningful, because when you read, you gain new ideas, new vocabulary, and new perspectives that allow you to express yourself in more interesting and thoughtful ways.
Exactly, and people who read often communicate with more clarity, more kindness, and more confidence, because their minds are full of stories, knowledge, and emotional understanding.
Another wonderful thing is that reading improves decision-making, because when you learn from characters who make difficult choices, your brain becomes better at evaluating situations and thinking ahead.
Yes, stories act like practice for real life. You observe decisions, consequences, and emotions, and your mind becomes wiser without needing to experience everything yourself.
For English learners, reading also builds rhythm. When you see how sentences flow, how ideas connect, and how punctuation works, your speaking becomes smoother and more natural.
Yes, and this natural rhythm is something many learners struggle with. But reading makes it easier, because your brain absorbs the music of the language without needing long explanations.
Reading is also a wonderful way to explore new vocabulary without stress, because when you see a new word written beside familiar words, your brain understands it naturally through context.
Exactly, and this natural learning is so much more relaxing than memorizing lists. You simply enjoy the story, and the vocabulary grows inside you almost effortlessly.
Another powerful effect is that reading increases curiosity. When you read one interesting idea, your brain wants to learn more, explore more, and ask more questions.
Yes, and curiosity is one of the strongest forces for learning. When you are curious, studying becomes enjoyable and practice becomes something you look forward to.
Reading also helps improve your emotional vocabulary. Words like confused, relieved, hopeful, or overwhelmed become easier to understand and use, because you see them in real emotional situations.
An emotional vocabulary is so important because it helps you communicate your feelings clearly, which improves relationships and reduces misunderstandings.
One of my favorite effects of reading is that it teaches compassion. You learn to understand people's pain, their hopes, and their dreams, even if you've never lived their experiences.
Yes, and compassion makes you a better communicator because you listen more deeply, speak more gently, and connect with people more honestly.
Reading also helps reduce anxiety, because stories give your mind something soft and steady to focus on, which helps calm the nervous system and slow down racing thoughts.
Yes, reading is like a peaceful place you can enter anytime, a place where your mind can rest, breathe, and feel safe for a while.
I also love how reading encourages independence, because when you read, you explore new ideas, make your own interpretations, and build knowledge without needing anyone to explain everything.
Yes, reading gives you a sense of personal strength. It shows you that you can learn on your own, grow on your own, and understand the world with your own mind.
Another amazing effect is that reading improves confidence when speaking English, because the more words and sentences your brain has seen, the easier it becomes to express yourself naturally.
Exactly, and this confidence is the key to fluency. Reading fills your mind with language, and speaking becomes smoother and less stressful.
Reading also strengthens your ability to stay calm in conversations, because when you understand more, you worry less, and your mind feels more in control.
Yes, reading builds inner confidence, the quiet kind that helps you speak without fear and listen without stress.
Another interesting effect is that reading increases creativity in everyday life. Suddenly you find yourself thinking of new solutions, new ideas, and new ways to express yourself.
I feel the same way, and I love how reading makes the world feel bigger, more colorful, and more full of possibilities.
Before we finish, I want to remind our listeners that they don't need to read big, difficult books. Even short stories, simple articles, or children's books can transform your brain if you read them regularly.
Yes, it's the habit that matters, not the difficulty. What you read is less important than reading a little every day with curiosity and enjoyment.
And now, as we end this episode, I want to say thank you for spending this time with us. Your dedication to learning English is truly inspiring.
Yes, we are so proud of you, and we hope this conversation encouraged you to read more, think more, and believe in your ability to grow.
Before you go, please remember to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss our long, natural English learning conversations.
And please like this episode if it helped you. Your likes help the podcast reach more learners who need support.
We'd also love to hear from you, so feel free to comment below. What book are you reading right now? Or what book do you want to start?
Your comments help create a community of learners who inspire each other, and we love reading your thoughts and experiences.
And don't forget to share this episode with friends, classmates, or family members. Someone you know might need this encouragement today.
Sharing helps our learning family grow, and it allows us to continue creating long, meaningful episodes just for you.
Thank you again for being with us, for listening deeply, and for believing in your ability to learn English with confidence and joy.
Yes, your progress matters, your effort matters, and every small step you take brings you closer to fluency.
We hope you keep reading, keep learning, and keep practicing. Your brain becomes stronger each time you challenge it gently with new stories and ideas.
And remember, reading is not just an activity. It's a doorway to new worlds, new emotions, and a better version of yourself.
Thank you for joining us on Fremmer English Podcast, the place where your English grows naturally through real, heartfelt conversation.
Goodbye, everyone. And remember to subscribe, like, comment, and share. We appreciate you so much, and we'll see you in the next episode.